Have you ever just stopped and looked at an old wall? And I mean really looked. What if I told you that the weird patterns on this one crumbling surface could tell us something not just about the past, but about the future of all our cities? Let's zoom in. All right, take a good look at this. What are you seeing here? It looks like some kind of intricate organic pattern, right? It's this strange and honestly beautiful thing found on the side of an old house. So your first guess might be something geological. Maybe it's bioclastic limestone, the cross-sections of ancient seashells from a prehistoric ocean floor, millions of years old, just stuck in the wall. Or, hey, maybe it's some kind of fancy, forgotten stonework. Plausible theories for sure, but they're both completely wrong. To solve this little mystery, we've got to look closer, because this isn't just a surface. It's a story, and it's written by a very unique collaboration between human hands and the relentless march of time. That fossil theory is so tempting, isn't it? I mean, those C-shaped marks really do look like shells, and in some parts of the world, buildings are actually made from stone like this, quarried right from old seabeds. You could literally be living inside a prehistoric aquarium. But nope, that's not what's going on here. The real story is much closer to home. The truth isn't buried in deep time. It's way more recent, and honestly, a lot more surprising. Our story actually starts in the 1980s. And here it is, the big reveal. What you're looking at isn't a fossil. It's basically the wrinkles on a modern building. This is what happens to a very specific wall finish that was popular in the 80s after about 4 decades of wind, rain, and sun. It's the art of decay. So the technique is called La Maoqiang, which is just a fantastic name. It translates to something like a pulled hair wall. And back in the day, it was a super popular, modern-looking finish. The whole idea was to get this rough, textured surface by literally flinging or pulling a wet mix of cement, sand, and lime onto the wall. The process for creating this look was pretty straightforward. You'd mix up this wet slurry, cement, sand, and lime, and then you just fling it or pull it against the wall. And the result was this surface covered in these sharp, rough peaks, a very deliberate, textured design that was considered pretty stylish at the time. But then, 40 years happen. Nature gets to work. Rain and wind start to wear down those sharp peaks. The cement itself actually shrinks over time, which creates this whole network of tiny little cracks. Then, as everything gets older, the sand particles start to fall away and water seeps through those cracks, leaving mineral deposits behind. And that's how you get this intricate pattern that looks just like snail trails or some kind of alien maze. So there you have it. It's not a fossil, it's not ancient art, it's this unintentional masterpiece, a joint project between the industrial look of the 1980s and 4 decades of Mother Nature just doing her thing. But this beautiful decay, it tells a much bigger story about the stuff we choose to build with. So this one wall tells us a story about its own decay, but it also blows up into a much bigger question, right? A question about the materials we use and the fundamental difference between the building blocks of the past and the ones we use in our modern world. And this table just lays it out so perfectly. On one hand, you've got your traditional blue brick. We're talking hundreds of years of lifespan. It ages gracefully, it gets character, and it's modular. One brick fails, you just pop it out and replace it. It's a long-term asset. Now, compare that to our cement stucco wall. Its lifespan? About 50 years. It decays, well, disgracefully. It's rigid, it's brittle, and at its core, it's a short-term consumable. You could put it another way. Blue brick wins the long game. It's all about that longevity. Stucco, on the other hand, it wins in its moment of glory. It was cheap, it was fast, it looked modern for its time, but that moment is fleeting. And the decay? That's inevitable. And all of this points to a universal law that governs pretty much everything. And that law has a name. It's one of the most fundamental concepts in physics, and it dictates the fate of stars, of life, and yep, even of cement walls. It's called entropy. So, to put it simply, the law of entropy increase says that everything in the universe naturally goes from order to disorder. Your clean room gets messy, a hot cup of coffee gets cold, a brand new building eventually crumbles. See, it takes a ton of energy to create and maintain order, but disorder, that just happens all by itself. So think of it like this. A brand new house is what you'd call a low entropy system. Its structure is strong, the materials are all organized, and energy is contained. But our weathered wall, that's a high entropy system. The structure is breaking down, the components are getting all disorganized, and its energy is just gone. You know those fascinating snail trails we started with? They're not just random patterns. They are a perfect, real-world picture of entropy. It's the physical proof of an ordered system relentlessly, inevitably moving toward total chaos. Okay, so why does any of this matter to you? Because that one weathered wall from the 1980s is like a miniature prophecy. It's a tiny warning about the future of the huge, concrete jungles that pretty much all of us live in today. 50 years. That's the rough lifespan of the cement-based materials that make up the vast majority of our modern high-rise buildings. For a lot of our cities, that clock is already ticking. Because those same forces of entropy, they're not just working on that one wall. They are working on every single concrete building in every city right this second. Our modern skylines are basically these massive low-entropy systems, and time is pushing every single one of them toward inevitable decay. And as these buildings get older, the challenges are enormous. I mean, repair costs don't just add up, they multiply exponentially. Complex systems, elevators, plumbing, electrical, they all start to fail at once. People who live there lose what's called survival autonomy. Just think about it. You can't just go patch your own roof or fix your own foundation when you're 30 stories up. You become completely dependent on systems you have zero control over. And without huge, constant investment, the risk of these buildings becoming vertical slums is very, very real. And there's also a deeper, almost psychological cost here. We've traded the traditional ditang, an earthen courtyard that actually breathes and connects us to the ground, for asphalt and concrete. We've basically sealed ourselves off from the earth inside these impermeable shells, making us completely dependent on fragile external systems just to survive. That old, weathered wall, it forces us to ask this really profound question. We build with stuff we know is going to fail. We create systems that we know will break down. So in this relentless march toward chaos, in a world where everything eventually decays, what is it that actually lasts? What is truly worth building?